Hello and welcome back to Because Things Can Be Different. In this episode, we're going to be looking at how to market a coffee shop brand. Cameron, what's the first thing to consider when marketing a coffee shop brand?
Oh, there's so many things, Mike. I'm not really sure where to start.
Well, you could start with the implementation of the brand.
Yes. Yeah, so we've covered brand in episode 1. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It just gives you, hopefully, the foundations of, how to build a brand from the ground up. All of these episodes are going to only be, the surface of it, because we'll be here for hours and bore people to death if we go into too much detail. But with this, the implementation of the brand that you've created needs to be paid attention to. So we're looking then at so let's just go straight into something really obvious. Coffee cups.
Yeah.
So getting your logo on a coffee cup, it can cost quite a bit of money actually for a small brand. We've had this with some customers before because of the minimum quantity orders of the coffee cup. So there's clever stuff you can do, which a lot of coffee companies do now, which is stamping your own cups. Yep.
A stamp is relatively inexpensive to get produced.
Exactly. And then you get a branded coffee cup. It kind of looks cool. It looks independent. Ideally, though, something a little bit more... Let's go into it more detail where you can actually afford to get it printed. It comes down to the stuff, again, for the brand. It's not just the logo you've got on your cup or the colour of the cup. It might be the fact that it's 100% biodegradable, 100% recyclable. All of those things are part of the story you're trying to tell, and also the values you've got, the brand values. We didn't really talk about that in the branding section because we're trying to build the brand at that point. The brand values need to be built into the brand, but they need to be activated really and brought forward as you move forward. The marketing should be the bit that does that, that educates your potential or existing customers on what your values are. So if you don't care about the environment, you're a terrible person. But if you don't care about the environment, then it doesn't matter. But if your customers probably will. We're all becoming more educated on this stuff, and you don't have to have gone to university and learn about sustainable manufacturing like I did to understand that it's becoming more important, and we can't just keep on using the world's resources. Yeah. So that will and can work wonders for your business. So all of a sudden your cups are 100% biodegradable, or you push really hard on reusable cups. We know a great company and work with quite a lot, a reusable cup, one of the first I'd point out. So that again can be part of your brand, having your brand put on one of these reusable cups, and then someone comes back and uses that constantly. It's all part of the marketing experience. Someone walking down the street, this is how Starbucks built their brand, was people walking down the street with their
massively
large cups with the rounder on there.
Check out my large cup.
Yeah, it was a thing. Yeah. It was a thing. People wanted to be seen to be, drinking and exploring coffee. It was when the first third wave kind of set of coffee came about, and people wanted to be seen with it, and that's how they built the brand, is having this, the large cups and the logo on it.
But location is also important. You touched on that in the first episode about how the brand strategy and everything that's come out of the research, your location and how you position your brand. It could be a high-end brand, or it could not be a high-end brand. It could be more hipster. Even down to the way you put the brand on the coffee cup, and what coffee cup you choose will be part of that.
Yeah, do you have your name plastered on it, or do you have a really subtle mark?
Yeah.
Are you high-end enough or cool enough that you don't actually want your name on it?
We don't want to go too pretentious.
Well, I mean, each their own. I happen to like a mark. I happen to like it when people have to know what the brand is. But yeah, I mean, that's all part of it. Being confident with the brand. There's some companies out there that have done a great job of that, where you recognise the mark that says almost nothing. You know exactly who they are. Yeah. And is that what you're trying to achieve? Comes down to shop frontage. What do you want to do with the shop front? Do you want it to have a huge sign on it that you can read from 500 paces, or do you want it to be a bit more subtle?
Yeah. Bit of mystique about it.
Bit of mystique. So I'm having trouble speaking. So it's all decisions to be made. There's recommendations we can make. They're unfortunately they are about individual businesses and individual locations. There's no point in us trying to. We can say what we like more. I've made it clear that I like a mark where no one really knows what it is, but you're so cool that you should know. I like that. I think it's cool, and I think it's engaging to customers. It's like a club.
I understand that. A nice gold mark on a gold foil onto a nice sort of greeny coloured cup. That would look That looked pretty sick.
Yeah, this is it. But you're again, it's about your brand strategy at the beginning, and what your market research tells you is what you should be doing with that. That's not going to work if you're going after mass takeaway. For example.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pointless.
The costs.
Spending that amount of money on the cup.
No.
So let's come away from cups. We've got obsessed with cups because it is something that we deal with a lot, as you can imagine. But it's stuff like loyalty cards. What's the loyalty card printed on? We've got a couple of people that we've done consultancy for. We've not created the brand, and they've asked us to look into the implementation. And they've got loyalty cards that are printed on the worst quality card with the worst quality printing.
Tissue paper.
Tissue paper. I would say it's not even as nice as tissue paper.
Toilet paper.
It was like toilet paper where they had saved it's the penny. Is it the penny smart pound stupid? I'm sure
Something
there's a more
like that.
eloquent one than that, but you understand what I'm saying is if you're doing a loyalty card and you're trying to make people remember, let's maybe print it on some paper or stock, as we call it in the trade, that says something about you. Does it need to be recycled paper? But we've got some customers that have got some really nice loyalty cards that are printed on brown recycled stock. Looks great. We've got other customers that have incredibly high-end brands in very high-end cities around the world that have the top quality paper mills producing bespoke double-sided letter pressed cards that they stamp with some handmade stamps. Again,
but it's all about how the brand's implemented it into that.
That person's got that loyalty card in their wallet. It feels like something. It feels it's all about representing your customers' aspirations. And what they feel that is important to them about your brand. It's not just about you. It's about the relationship you have with your customers. So the implementation, it goes all the way through the bags. Walking down the street with a bag, we all know there's some companies there. I'm trying not to mention actual companies because it feels unfair to if they are one of our customers or not, etc. But there's companies out there who are famous for the type of bag they've got. There's some clothing companies. There's a large department store in New York that has just a certain colour of a bag. Is now became so famous they've created non-paper versions of their bag as a bag. This is worth thinking about. If someone's walking down the road with their lunch that they've got from you and their coffee cup, you got a free billboard there. So do you want it to be in brown paper or do you want it to be in white? Do you want it to be in jet black with gold, for example, as Mike was saying, or dark green? It's the implementation needs to be thought about, and I must say it's about return on investment. This whole thing is about return on investment, so don't scrimp too much. I understand I started this business with almost nothing, so I do understand it's easier said than done. But we have worked with some customers they've got a large budget and they've still cut corners on stuff like this. And we heavily advise against that because it can be the difference between everyone wondering what this new coffee shop is and everyone not knowing that it exists. So it's a key part. So I think we've covered almost the whole list in physical assets. So we can move on.
Website.
Apparel and merchandise first.
Yeah.
We've got some customers, and we've got some customers we've just consulted on where we haven't created their brand, and they've absolutely killed it. Especially with current times, coronavirus. If this is being viewed in a few years' time, hopefully this is all gone and we're all back to complete normal. We're not wearing space helmets around the street. But yeah, so hopefully this won't be a long-term thing. But yeah, we've had some customers that have blown up. We're talking like quadrupling their sales of stuff like merchandise because their brand's so cool. People want to wear a t-shirt with their brand on it. Who knew? It's a coffee company. It's a coffee company, and people are wanting to support them, and they're happy to wear their brand on a t-shirt.
And it's not just positioned within the coffee shop itself. It's online. It's on their Instagram. It's everywhere that's associated with
They've done a great job. Well, again, we won't want to mention any specific brands, but yeah, they've done a fantastic job, and they've stayed afloat because of it. And this is what we're here to do. This is why we're doing this with the Global Coffee Festival, is to try and support those small businesses that might not understand this, or God forbid, not even think it's important. And we're trying to point out that this can be the difference between survival and bankruptcy. It really can. We've got companies that don't even roast their own coffee, but they do have a roaster that produces their own blend. They've sold out of their bags of coffee by selling it, moving nicely a segue into the website, which is something that cannot be underestimated. The power of a website for a bricks and mortar store is still there. And we get tired of trying to explain this to people, that a bricks and mortar is one thing, but why wouldn't you open yourself up to the online potential?
Yeah.
Whether it's selling merchandise or just helping people find you and making sure that, you know, your Google listings and everything have a link back to your website, explain your story, and it gives you that interaction.
It's hitting those expectations. I think in like today, you would expect a company, whatever company that is, to have a website, to have an online presence. It's a bit odd that they don't. So I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in food and beverage and stuff. If you just want to go down to the things of, you know, just the trust level involved in it. If you're serving food, for example, it's just making sure that wherever anyone wants to look, they're going to find something that represents you in the best light. A website is a very easy way of doing that.
Yeah. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not the most expensive thing that they have to put some money into.
No.
And the best return on investment.
I think it can. I mean, the key
from an
point
online marketing
is,
point of view.
I think I mentioned it in the last pod, that we only sell stuff that we do for our own businesses. We've built this business up into a relatively large design group. We work internationally around the world for very large and small companies. But yeah, I built this from 21 years old out of university, and I got all my first orders for the furniture and stuff that we produce was digital marketing. Was a website that I had to build myself because I couldn't afford. I had friends that were graphic designers and even makes rates I couldn't afford. So it's very important, and don't underestimate it.
If you're going to go down the website route, what's the number one thing you're going to need on there? Good quality.
Well, I know where you're going with this because this is your forte. Good quality photography, which might give anyone
video.
That doesn't know is videography, which is, you know, we're filming this, so this opens us up to other platforms.
Hopefully it's good quality.
We hope. It's all very makeshift at the moment due to the current situation, but it's the photography. I mean, as a professional photographer, videographer, what are the key points that customers need to understand? Because not everyone can afford to hire you, Mike.
No, not everyone can afford to, you know, have an all singing or dancing camera, but you don't necessarily need that to get a right image.
Geez, even the older iPhones are very good quality, especially for online content where you can't actually put a massive file up. If you're going to do a billboard, for example, you need like a medium format or something. But beyond that, iPhones are incredible. The new I've got the iPhone Pro with the wide angle and stuff and the face tracker. You can get some incredible content. Again, look on Instagram.
Depth of field is key.
Yeah, depth of field.
If you want to create some mood within a photo, capture the essence of your interior or a product, you know, position that, you know, nicely roasted coffee bag on your counter and get a nice depth of field shot, maybe with the logo in the background.
Maybe
or
one to one side.
To one side,
That's something that people don't seem to miss. We don't want.
There's a rule of thirds
in
photography. You know, and most cameras, even your smartphone now, will grid out your screen so that you can see where you're positioning your subject. So a third of the frame can be filled with the subject. The rest gives you space, and also that gives you space for text. If you're thinking about the implementation of this into a website, it's really, really important. You know, your imagery has to work on many levels. It's a lot to get your head around because you've got social media, you know, you've got your website. So that's why you want to be taking not just one shot. It's not one and done. It's multiple shots, different angles, different heights, you know, different positioning, different framing. Try and get a catalogue of imagery together that you can use across multiple platforms.
I mean, let's just, we won't name the customer again, but we worked for a very large corporate company and we ran all media for them, so complete turnkey package. And the photography total by the end of the first...
That's still going.
But no, when we
end
were
of the first year,
for,
25,000 shots, I think I took.
Was it 25? Yeah, 25,000 shots. So they then all have to be looked through. So obviously, Mike is a professional photographer. Yeah. We're a professional branding agency. Not suggesting you do that. But
we are talking many levels.
This is the bit. The best photographers in the world never take one photo.
No.
And we get it all the time. We ask interns, for example, can you just take a shot of that while it goes in, like on an install? And they take a shot of it. And guess what? Someone walked in front of it and they've missed it. You're there. Take the photo more times. If you've taken a photo of your coffee bag or your cup where your barista's done a beautiful job of the latte art, take a couple of angles. If you're not very good at photography, research, look at Instagram.
Yeah.
We are so lucky to have this high quality content that you can get from around the world from amazingly good photographers. Look at it, analyze what they've done, copy it. It's that simple. So you don't have to be a professional photographer. If you have no interest in this and you don't care about it, that does not mean that your customer base has the same opinion as you. That is a very important thing to get across. You might not care about photography. You might not notice the fact that they've done a really nice side angle with a shallow depth of field. They've got dark background, light foreground, all of those things that we as people in this field care about. But I tell you what, people scrolling through Instagram will spot that. That's what Instagram has been built on. The algorithm even works on that. So it's really important. And small coffee shops have really built a following off the back of just good quality content.
And I know we all, we take the mickey out of those people that love to take photos of their food. One of the biggest things on Instagram.
Yeah, you want people taking photos of your food. Yeah. So that a great example, actually, Mike. What about how you present your food?
Yes, exactly.
You might only sell cake. Yeah. You might not even, God forbid, make it on your premises because you can't have, under licensing, you can't do it. You're buying it off of a really good baker down the road. That doesn't mean you can't put it on a plate and present it.
That's a good point.
Let's not just slap it out on a paper plate because no one's going to photograph that. But if you just
school dinner-esque.
Yeah. Again, we've got some customers that have done amazing jobs. Tiny coffee shops in cities. You probably know who I'm talking about if you know our company and the people we work for, and that person is probably watching this now. So hello, and you know who you are. But in a city somewhere in Europe, they have absolutely smashed the food offering of their shop to the point they've been offered discounted rates in other locations because certain developers want them in those locations. I mean, we can't underestimate, or you can't underestimate, how much this can accelerate your business forward by getting these things right. Their brand, great. We did it, so that's a little bit arrogant, I suppose. But yeah, it looks very nice and people really liked it and people grabbed hold of it and people are buying t-shirts of it. So that's obviously working. But then it's what the customer's done with it afterwards. It doesn't end with what we do. They have grabbed hold of that and created something really special that's accelerated their business profile and let's be honest, their profits, which is what we're all here for as business owners. As dirty as it may sound, it's the most important thing. It's the lifeblood of any business. It's accelerated that for them massively. So yeah, and they've got photos all over the internet of what they do, and it's just their food. Their coffee, don't get me wrong, latte art gets shot a lot as well. But yeah, it's something that can be missed. And you don't have to be a master chef. Again, have a look on the internet, have a look on Instagram, see what other people are doing. How are they drizzling that little sauce over their brownie to make it look a little bit more photogenic? It's, the attention to detail is become a necessity and not a nice thing to do.
Brownie's making me hungry now. I suppose the other thing as well, with putting it into a website, you've got to make sure you've got the right sizing of the photos too. So there's a lot of tools you can use that are at your disposal. And I'm sure there'll be, at some point, we're going to do an episode on photography.
Yeah, so we are using the Global Coffee Festival as a launch plan for this because we've been meaning to do podcasts to help small businesses that can't necessarily afford to hire a company like us or us ourselves. So we are trying to give you these types of pods for you to at least get the steer to then go and do your own research. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There's editing programs out there. There's a lot you can do on your phone, and if I'm honest, some of the content that you create on social media, you're better off just doing it on your phone because you don't have any of the transfer problems. You don't get your photos being compressed by an online platform that actually makes them worse quality if you just posted it from a phone.
Yeah, that's true.
There's lots of editing, and to be honest, Instagram editing at the moment is as good as it needs to be.
I think there's another misconception of social media is that people think they're going to be tied to their phone like 24/7. As long as you plan it out, you can schedule your posts and then leave it and let it run. The only thing you're going to have to do is perhaps do some, additional hashtags or tag people in.
Yeah, and interact is really key. I mean, it's difficult for us because we can't. Our own business is not a particularly interactive kind of business on social media, so we post all the time. We put our projects up, but it's not like, we're showing off other people's businesses. So it's not the sort of thing where we're going to have that much interaction going on, but our customers do, and it's really important to keep that going and comment. That goes down to like Google reviews.
Yep.
Absolute gold. Google is all powerful.
Google is king.
Google is king. And whether you like that or not, again, doesn't matter. You have no choice. Just toe the line and do what Google wants, because it can change your entire business. Reviews are very important. There's other review things, TripAdvisor, etc., etc. This is all part of marketing. Get on TripAdvisor and make sure your reviews are good. Ask customers to put them up. And I'll tell you what, if they're not good, you're doing something wrong. I hate to say it, but you've done something wrong, or God forbid, a staff member's done something wrong. Someone's been rude. Quality of the coffee wasn't up to scratch. That's part of the business, I'm afraid, and it's a hard lesson for people to learn. There's a local pub where I live. Again, I won't mention where I live because everyone will know which pub it is. But it's a lovely pub. It's, I think, 18th century. It's beautiful looking country pub. The kitchen is absolutely terrible, and I know the landlady, and she asked me to put a review up because I had eaten there, and it was a difficult one for me to do because was it a 5-star review? Arguably not, because their kitchen's just not very good. So rather than thinking that everyone hates you and is putting the wrong reviews up, have a look at the kitchen. Have a look at customer service if that's what you think. We've got tools here that we might not want to hear it, but take the criticism and then improve the business.
That's exactly what I was going to say next. Yeah, because you can take those bad reviews and you can turn them on the head. You can obviously do good replies to those bad reviews, which then kind of appeases future people that will look at those reviews, and hopefully encourage things to change in the future.
Well, there's an old saying that goes, I can't remember the exact saying, but it's something along the line is every complaint is an opportunity to create a relationship and improve your business. And the creating the relationship is the side. We've got experience with that. I think I talked about this person before we started recording, but I've got a long-term client and a very close friend now. And if you're listening, you know who you are. But their first interaction with me was shouting down the phone about me being late for a meeting because a train got stopped. And I'm sure she will remember that if she is listening to this. But it was the way I dealt with it afterwards. I apologised, obviously, and it really wasn't.
And you're always usually punctual. I mean, you're not.
I am. I do pride myself on turning up early. There's been many times where I've had to stand outside someone's office or coffee shop trying to pretend that I'm not there for a meeting just because I like to be early. To be honest, it was because she shouted at me so loudly that it was one of the reasons that I've got really good at it. But I'm not using this as an example because it doesn't make sense. It's because she even said this to me. It wasn't what happened and me not being able to get to this site visit. It was because I went the next day, I filmed the location, I talked through it, I spoke to the site manager there separately to the client. I filmed it all, then I rang her and asked if there was anything she wanted me to double check while I was there. I texted her some photos of problems I had spotted. No one else had paid that much attention to it. So all of a sudden, we went from a massive problem where I had looked like I got it horribly wrong, but the way I dealt with the complaint, if you like, the criticism, has now been a 10-year long relationship, and we've worked across many different businesses that she herself works for.
A great example of how you can elevate that.
Yes, it's gone from one small job going wrong at the beginning to turning into a long-term relationship and a friendship as well. She came to my wedding.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, so it's something, I think that's a prime example of it, where it goes from a very bad situation to building a relationship because of the way in which I dealt with a bad situation. Yeah. You guys, as coffee shop owners or want to be coffee shop owners, can do the same thing. Don't shy away from those bad reviews, and don't be scared of just admitting that maybe you got it wrong or a member of staff got it wrong, and then move forward from that.
I mean, reviews are great. It's all part of one thing in common, especially with the website, and that's the SEO side of things.
Yes, so this comes under the semantic SEO, which is Google released an algorithm 2-3 years ago.
I think so, yeah.
It all blurs into one with us because we're constantly trying to figure out what Google's doing, but call it 3 years ago. And they released an algorithm that would register the social response for the company. So it started taking reviews in on certain platforms, including their own. And the way people interacted as well. So just ignoring it and just having it running in the background, Google doesn't like. So again, we're probably going into more detail on another episode because we're just trying to cover the basics and the bits that go away and have a look at. But we probably do another pod just on this.
Yeah, I mean, because a website we're talking about website SEO, I suppose, a bit more.
Yeah,
a website without SEO is I would say pretty much useless, because in effect the website is there, you think you've got your online presence, but how do people find you?
The analogy that I always like using, as you're probably sick of hearing, is it's like having a Ferrari without the key.
I've had this one so many times.
Yeah.
Go on.
I think it's a good one.
Say it.
It's a good one. It is a good one. Ferrari without a key. It's like you're sitting there and you've got to get your friends to push you along because you can't start it. It's the same thing. We can create an amazing website, but if the client's not interested in SEO and creating ongoing content and stuff, where Google then rewards and puts them up on the first page, then you've got your Ferrari sat in the garage, which don't get me wrong, I'd love to have a Ferrari sat in the garage, but it would be disappointing if I didn't have the key. And it sounds stupid, but I think it's a clear analogy. Your website can look fantastic, but if no one finds you, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. There's only so many noises you can make when you sit in the car. You can't, if you haven't got the key, then what's the point?
I mean, yeah, we've all done it. But no, it is important, and again, you only have to look at Amazon from a design point of view. I mean, it's very boring and very simple, and the usability of it and stuff is not particularly great. But God, they smashed the hell out of the SEO side.
They have, yeah.
And that is how they built the business, because you search for something, and 9 times out of 10. You can find it on your Google search through Amazon, because they concentrated on that. So by no means are we saying you should make your website look like Amazon, because I absolutely hate it. But it works. So it's a balancing act, in our opinion.
We're not endorsing Amazon, in particular. Other sites are available. But it is a reference.
Yeah, and if I'm honest, I don't like it, so I'm not endorsing it at all. But it just shows, in my opinion, it's a boring and not easily used website. And there's better ones out there. There's companies that have beautiful websites for searching, say, tech. But they don't come up because they've concentrated on the UX and not, it's got to be a holistic approach. We always say we have a holistic approach to branding and online content, and everyone needs to follow suit. The other key part we would say is there's a lot of evidence to show that Google has also put their algorithms, I think it's fair to say, would you agree, Mike, that Google has put their algorithms towards that holistic approach?
Yes.
It puts its tentacles out and it wants to know that you're interacting.
If you've got an e-commerce platform for a site, which I would say is food for thought when you come into a coffee shop, because you may have a product that you want to sell, or some merchandise.
Make one.
Yeah,
make one. Merchandise.
Then Google will pick up on that, and you'll see that if you've done the right level of SEO, the right imagery, it will appear on the results quite easily.
Yeah, it really does. How do we explain it? It's a very complicated thing that we've spent a long time learning, but the simplest way is think of an octopus, because I explained just now tentacles of Google. Think of your site that way. So there's on-site, there's off-site. Again, we'll do another pod, I think, about giving a bit more information about this type of thing. But, anywhere you can put your brand, your information is important.
Yeah.
So get it out there, spend the time, invest now, and then reap the rewards later.
Definitely.
Like I said, we've got customers that businesses during COVID have gone. I think we've got one that's 175% of the last count up on sales because of their online presence. Yeah. These are the things that gets missed, and just don't let that happen. If you haven't got a website here and you haven't got e-commerce where you can sell some merchandise and stuff, and you haven't got your own coffee, for example, now's the time to jump on the phone to some roasters that do white label and get a blend put together that ties in again with your brand and what you're trying to create, and what sort of coffee ties in with the sort of coffee shop you already own. Or if you're starting or thinking about starting now, you may have, God forbid, been made redundant, lost your job for some reason because of COVID, and you're thinking, I've saved some money up and I want to start a business. Start the right way. Start thinking about this holistic approach to creating a brand and creating different revenue streams off the back of it. It's the only way to do business now. I can't believe we even have to discuss this, and hopefully everyone watching is wondering why we're drilling this down so much. But honestly, we do have this conversation on the phone quite a lot.
We do. That's right.
So have we covered everything, Mike?
I think so.
Yeah?
Yeah.
We covered reviews, or are we still missing those on the list?
I think we've covered reviews. I think we have. Yeah, I'm sure we have. There was content marketing, like we are doing now, obviously with podcasts, and there's blogs and things you can do. Yeah.
So what we're doing is content marketing.
Yeah.
Don't be scared of giving back, like we talked about earlier. Give back a little, give some information, and help other people out. In this case, for coffee shops, it'll be your customers. Create a space and a community. It's easier said than done. It is. but if you're working towards it, you can only hit the target that you're aiming for. It's very rare that stuff happens just by complete accident. So I think it's time for the coffee industry to really drill down on the finite side of the business and digital and everything else to make sure that we can all come out of it better by the time hopefully all of this stuff blows over.
Yeah, hopefully, touch wood.
Yeah, it will. We will be fine. And if it's anything, it's a resilient business and sector. And we've had some great stories coming through from some of our customers about customer support and real community stuff. And so there's lots of positives. Yeah. So I think that's us done for episode
2 of Because Things Can Be Different. And I hope you've enjoyed that episode. Please follow us on Instagram at Liqui_Group and at Crate47. Follow the Global Coffee Festival as well. And if you haven't got tickets, go and purchase them. Next up, episode 3, which will be with Oliver and yourself.
Yeah, design manager Oliver from Liqui Group, Liqui Design side. So this will be I think we'll probably drill it down to the 5 top things to look at with your interior. So if you're not hiring an interior design firm like us, what are the 5 things? I think we should keep it the same as what we did for brand. The 5 things you should look at, to save money. There's lots of stuff that people accidentally fall into because there's lots of unscrupulous landlords out there that like making a property sound better than it actually is. So we can highlight those, and we're hopefully if you weren't going to use a design firm, you should be able to at least miss the pitfalls.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful.
Right, we'll see you on the next one. Mike, you're not here the next one, so you should say goodbye. Okay, till next time.
Bye for now. See you on the flip side.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, guys.